Since it was built in the 1920s and 30s, Battersea Power Station has seen its share of controversy. In the beginning, residents worried about pollution. By the end of the 1980s, there were concerns on what to do with the nearly 40-acre site. While the property has had a variety of owners, the property was purchased for £400 million by a Malaysian conglomerate, with their plans to start construction of 3,500 luxury homes, including offices, retail outlets, and restaurants. Construction was to begin in September 2013. So what is happening with Battersea Power Station and the vision of its new owners? We decided to ask Brian Barnes and Keith Garner of the Battersea Power Station Community Group to give us their insights.
So Brian, what do you think of progress at the Battersea Power Station?
Well, it looks
so far.
Oh, it looks good, doesn't it? Now there are hundreds of men in hard hats, and cement making machines, but no flats.
Well, I don't know. I think you're going to have to admit that we got it wrong. You know,
No, I never know. No.
They're going to go.
What's happened is that although it looks like something's happening, and they're supposed to have sold 800 flats in the first phase and several hundred, 350 flats in the second phase, there are no flats actually built. It's completely Emperor's New Clothes situation where people have paid 10% for a flat and they don't see any reality to it. That's what and then I'm also reading that there's a £4 billion debts which is owed now to the banks for loans they have taken out.
Well, I'm hearing that a lot of these flats are being seemingly bought by employees of the developer, or even at some discounted prices. So there's something very strange going on there. So I just wonder if this is related to the whole chimneys issue. But I think we're still thinking that there's going to be. You can see behind us the southwest chimney is now being shrouded in scaffolding, and I don't know if you can see right up to the top. There's a little cradle.
There's a green fence at the top of the chimney. That's to access the inside of the chimney for laser review of the internal structure of the chimney and the size of the actual chimney, so as they can rebuild it. And what's going to happen is they're going to demolish that particular chimney behind us and rebuild it again to a height of 3/4 of the size, and then they can take all the other 3 chimneys down. But we're at the moment trying to find if there is a bond to keep some money in the bank so as they can rebuild them if the developer goes bust. And remembering that so far three developers have gone bust in this scheme, there's no reason to suppose that the 4th won't go bust as well.
And there's a lot. Previously, when there was a bond for the rebuilding of the West Wall, it turned out that in fact the bond wasn't deposited. And this is way back in the late 1980s when the West Wall was taken down. The developer ran out of money, the work stopped, and once the council looked into it, the bond money wasn't there. So there's form here. This has happened before, so it's entirely plausible that they could come up with a reason not to rebuild the chimneys, and then when we look into the paperwork, look into the legal guarantees, we find that they're not enforceable. So we think this is highly plausible that there's not going to be an enforceable bond. So we are going to be seeking a meeting with Wandsworth Council fairly soon to discuss this in more detail, to see whether there is an enforceable contract, whether the money is actually in an account somewhere, whether that money can actually be got at in the event of a default, and and that there isn't some other unforeseen excuse or eventuality which will mean that the money can't be got out and the chimneys can't be rebuilt.
The hilarious thing about that bond was when it was an irrevocable letter of credit under Parkview and Victor Wang. The council forgot to put in the contract that they could go across the land to repair the chimneys. So any developer could refuse them access to the building to repair the chimneys. So this time they've thought of that possibility and have included it in the contract. But whether they've forgotten something else crucial, we are yet to find out.
Well, I think you can reasonably assume that they have, because they can afford much better lawyers than the council can afford. There'll be something.
Well, the point is though, isn't there? There are 600 documents lodged with Wandsworth Council at the moment.
It's a current planning application,
which we can't actually possibly have time to read every small clause in the new contracts or the new planning applications, because there are 600 documents, plans, drawings, written work. We can't actually, as a community group, we can't actually deal with that. And to trust the council to do that is like something we just cannot afford to do, because they have always shown themselves to be the developer's friend.
On the basis of past experience. And we're still of the view that there's no evidence to support the contention that the chimneys need to be demolished and rebuilt. And I actually met years ago in 2005, we commissioned our own report about the structural integrity of the chimneys, and the finding at the time from the engineers who looked at it was that there was the case for demolishing and rebuilding the chimneys wasn't made. Now, interestingly, at the recent consultation, I met one of those engineers who made that original report, and he's still of the view that they just haven't made this case, and that the chimneys are, as far as he can see, are capable of being rebuilt, or at least on the basis of the evidence we have. There's no case that they have to be knocked down and reconstructed. So we just get back to that same position. What are they up to? What's going on here? What's the trick?
And of course, that man, Stuart Tapping, who you're talking about, is an expert on concrete repair, who's given a talk for the World Monuments Fund very soon about concrete repair on Battersea Power Station chimneys, as part of their World Monuments Fund watch list, where the power station is now on an at-risk register with the World Monuments Fund, with all sorts of buildings in Syria and even Palestine, where they're in war zones, and listed buildings are in war zones, but Battersea Power Station is considered to be at risk as much as they are by the developers of this building. The recent public inquiry that was held into the building of the tube, the Northern Line extension, and everybody associated with Battersea Power Station accepts that this is a given. It's definitely going to happen, that there is going to be a tube running from Kennington to Battersea Power Station, and yet they've had a public inquiry which assumes the opposite, that the inquiry can find against the tube, and but we're already finding that the government has pledged £1 billion towards the tube, and the Mayor of London has guaranteed that the tube is going to happen, whatever the inspector of the public inquiry comes up with when he deliberates in several months' time. So it's already accepted as a given before any of our objections are considered. So it's like a mad Alice in Wonderland world, where the Queen says, "Off with his head," you know. There's there's £1 billion pledge with the finances of this project. £4 billion borrowed from banks, £1 billion guaranteed by the government of Great Britain for the tube. We're talking, a huge bubble of interest rates that are affecting the whole of London, in fact, in the whole of Battersea as well, about what we could expect for the local area.
I think we might be looking at an oversupply. This is just too many luxury flats.
Too many.
This is the tail end of the Nine Elms development, and they're gonna miss out. There'll be too many flats. This will be like the building boom, I think, of the 1870s, where you had all those rows and rows of terraces in North Kensington, which never ever got occupied by the rich families that they were built for, and they were subdivided and became kind of tenements and things. So there's going to be that. It's going to be a similar thing when the boom comes to an end, but they won't be able to sell these places, and who knows what will happen. It's
well, of course, I mean, as Keith says, no flats have been built over here. They have supposedly sold 800 flats in the first phase, and now they've sold 230 flats in the second phase. So already we're talking 1,000 flats, and we've got star architects of Frank Gehry and Norman Foster designing buildings for Battersea Power Station, and yet there's nothing there. And if you move down 1 mile to the American Embassy and Riverlight and the whole Vauxhall area, we're looking at 6 blocks of flats of 50 stories tall of luxury flats. And the American Embassy has got thousands of flats surrounding that area, called Embassy Gardens, and Riverlight is coming on stream now. So the new tenants will be moving into Riverlight in this year, 2014, and there will, when you see what's happening at the Battersea Power Station, there are no flats being built, and yet all these other places you can see cranes and buildings going up, but at Battersea you just see some earthworks.
Which is, they started construction sometime last October, November. Now we're May. It doesn't strike me that they've made a huge amount of progress since that in that time. And admittedly, they've got foundations and things to dig, but there's this sense that there's a lot of people running around on the site, but not really doing anything purposeful. You see a lot of money being spent on kind of secondary works, preparatory works. There's a lot of scaffold there. There's a lot of service roads, brand new service roads bringing things in. But in terms of actual construction and actual substantive work, again, there's nothing. And this is, I think, very, very telling. And it has been and it's just typified the whole issue about Battersea Power Station for the last 20, 30 years. There's always talk of work going on, but hardly, but it hardly ever does. And usually the work that does get done usually is some kind of dismantling work or taking things away. The chimneys are going to go. We also now know that the cranes, the 2 cranes on the riverside on the jetty, which used to unload the coal from the colliers, they're going to be taken away. For how long we don't know, but everything is this kind of so-called scorched earth policy of removal and things never being reinstated.